In this episode we will take a look at text in Minecraft. And text is literally everywhere. In the chat, in a book, as boss bar, title, entity name, in a scoreboard, or lore for an item. With a data pack you can modify all of it. Well, in the end this can result in very complex structures. Because the modifiable text in Minecraft actually consists of NBT data in this JSON format, you often have to escape bits like this one, and overall it's not very modular and easy to read. If you face these challenges as well, then it's your lucky day, because objD has the text component built in and it works across the entire framework. So let's say we want to display a title. Well, this is as easy as defining the title widget in your code here, providing an entity target, and use the show array here. In the end you can wrap some text with the text component. In Minecraft it looks like this. Maybe you also want to style it a bit more. Just choose from the suggested properties here. So for example we can say it should be underlined. So just say underlined true. You can also set it to bold, true, and italic as well. And to top it even more, you can strike it and obfuscate it. For the color you can just provide a color object. And objD will give you all the available colors, and you can just filter this list. Let's say we want gold, and you can see in Minecraft you get this mess out of here. But of course you can choose from your properties and style it to your needs. Also note that this show here is an array. That means you can insert multiple text components with multiple stylings and get your title right. So the title also has more constructors here. So you can, for example, get a subtitle with title.subtitle. This will be a bit smaller. Or an action bar here. Read more about the title widget down in the description. But let's use the Tellraw widget for now. It also works like the title, but prints out a new chat message instead. In the chat we can also use the other properties of this text component. So first there is the hover event, and this just requires a new text hover event. And if you look at all the constructors, you can see there are a few different things that can be displayed when you hover over the text. So there is text hover event.text, which just accepts a new list of text components. And you can see we now have this text hover event here. You're also able to display an item. Just insert an item in here. And you also have the option to display an entity name or an achievement. You can read more about that on the documentation. But let's come to the click event. This is also a text click event and has some named constructors. The open URL just takes in a web URL, for example stevatus.com here. And if I click this text now here, you can see Minecraft triggers this opening window here. You can also run a command, which just takes in a command widget. And this is especially useful when you're building interfaces with the chat, and that way you can interact with it. And lastly, you can also suggest text. So this text will just be copied into the input window down here. And that's also pretty useful. And lastly, we have the insertion property here. And that's just a text here. And if you shift clicked this text now, this gets copied into the chat window. That's all about the text component itself. But of course, you have a bit more options here to insert other text into the window. So for example, you can use TextComponent.translate, and of course you also have all the styling properties here. And in the translation file you can also set flags, so simple placeholders. And here we can insert values for these flags, conversion flags, and this is just an array of strings. So we can just say Steve here, and this would be the first flag. Then there is TextComponent.score. Here you can just insert a score. You can learn more about the score up here. And if we also set the score value up here, we should now be able to see this value in the text. And yes, you can see my text 5, and 5 is our value that we set up here. And you can also say selector, for example entity.selected, and this will just take the name of the selected entity and put it into the text component, which looks similar to this right here. And lastly, you also have entity NBT and block NBT, which take an entity or a block. So let's choose entity.selected again. And then it also requires a path. This is just an NBT path. And you can insert all kinds of data in here. If this data also might be text data, you can also set the interpret to true, and Minecraft will try to display this text from the NBT data. That's everything about the text component. So now let's talk a minute about the other use cases from the beginning. So we covered the title in the Tellraw, but you can also use it in an entity. So if you use the summon widget to summon a new entity, you can say name, and this also requires a text component. And here you can also use all the constructors and all the styling that you learned before. Then we also have the scoreboard itself, so scoreboard.add in this case. And this takes in a display property, which also has a text component. Here you can customize the title of this scoreboard. And lastly, you can use the item here. And of course, for an item, you can also set a name and use all kinds of styling here, and also some lore. And here again, this is a list of text components, and this is for each line of this item description. And you can of course use the text component here as well. And this is the part that you can modify with the item here. And last but not least, you can of course use it in books and also in a boss bar, but we will cover this in the widget a week for these specific widgets. But this was much information in this episode. If you didn't get some specific properties or just want to read it again, you can always visit my documentation at stevetas.com/objD/documentation and also check the whole objD playlist here.